Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host. Once again, back here in Bozeman, Montana. I love Bozeman. If you like, what the heck? This is Steven's third year coming to Bozeman working. What's he like about that place? You need to come out here and see for yourself. But in the meantime, if you want to check out all of my Bozeman-centric content, you can go to adventuresinbozeman.com. All of my travel articles, food articles, craft beer podcasts, and more importantly, a link to all of my culinary podcasts. So today, very excited. Nicole Morgan, how are you? Good morning.
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
So I did a podcast with Serena, who I've met and fell in love with. She's awesome. And she has basically a restaurant group here in Bozeman.
Yes.
She has Feed Cafe. She has Nova Cafe. She has Lot G. She has Daily Coffee, which has the bee sting pastry. Oh my gosh, I'm crazy about that thing. I just love it. So good. If you haven't had one, you got to go have it. And then you're part of a restaurant group here in Bozeman, Okay Cool, which is I love that name.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, one of the benefits of a restaurant group is you can have more hands on deck to help with things. You can weather storms better. You're buying in bulk, you can get all your paper towels, etc. So there's a lot of advantages to restaurant groups. People talk to chefs. The normal people get to hear about chefs, sometimes bartenders, rarely front of house, and never restaurant groups. But a lot of restaurants in America are part of restaurant groups. And the reason they survive often is because they're part of a restaurant group. So I'm excited to get to kind of peel back the curtain again and give people an inside scoop and tell your story. But mostly, just to be honest, the restaurants that you're part of, oh my gosh, I absolutely love them. I was like, oh, okay, she's part of those restaurants? Hell yes, I'm in. Let's tell her story.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so where were you born?
Edmonds, Washington.
And where'd you go to high school?
I went to Stadium High School in Tacoma, Washington.
And what's the mascot there?
Let's go Stadium Tigers.
I love that. Okay, and let's see, where do I want to start? Let's start a little bit about your professional journey, because you're crazy, and we'll talk about you love restaurants. We'll talk about that because that's a weird thing. Not everybody does love working in restaurants. But tell me about your first restaurant. I've got air quotes up for those that aren't watching on TV. There is no TV yet.
Yeah.
What was your first restaurant job?
I begged to become a barista at Shaka Bra Java on 6th Avenue in Tacoma, Washington.
Why were you begging them to do this?
It was definitely like the hippest coffee shop in town. They had an open mic night, and I just thought it would be the coolest ever. Watched a lot of Friends, right? Like wanted to work at a coffee shop outside of Seattle.
And then you started out as a barista.
I did.
And then you ended up cooking?
I did end up cooking. Yeah. Short order cooking on a breakfast line.
And then when the boss would take off, you'd run the show when they're on vacation?
Unbelievably so, but yes.
I mean, that's management.
Yeah.
Yep. And you loved the culture there, right?
I did. Yeah. It was my first dose of hospitality culture and kind of industry people.
And for you, it was a good culture.
It was. Yeah.
And I think that really, personally, in my opinion, my friend Jerry says that's how your gyros are set, or how your gyros got set. He talks about people that way, not airplanes. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of sets your gyros where you want good culture, and you that's what's normal to you is good, healthy, positive culture. I don't think the evil chef that throws things and yells at people and does cocaine, off the backs of their workers, really that's long gone. But there's still some restaurant culture, groups, some restaurants still to this day, some of them don't have good culture.
Yeah, I think that's super accurate. I mean, you kind of carve out the rest of your career by design, trying to find the kind of people you want to work with.
So something that really formed your journey, a lot of people wouldn't think of as far as what you do today, you spent some time at Nordstrom's.
I did. Very formative. Yes. I mean, their service mentality and training is just unlike anything else. Even to this day, if I see Nordstrom on somebody's resume, it makes me look twice, because you know that they've had a different kind of customer service training. Yeah,
and whether or not stuck is a different issue, but at least they got access to that information. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay, and then you go back into the restaurant world. Blue Sea Sushi, Seattle area.
Yep.
You're a server.
Yep.
And
at a conveyor belt sushi restaurant. So you find the irony there. But yes.
Hey, they've got the chairs around the outside.
There's a lot more going on than you think, but yes.
And that was part of a restaurant group.
Yes.
Some people don't even realize their restaurant's part of a restaurant group. So that was part of a group. And I'm sure you had an amazing looking resume.
Yeah. Yes. Short. I'm sure lots of volunteering jobs on that.
On that Nordstrom stuff on there.
Yes. That one thing. And Shaka Bra Java, of course.
Yeah. And that's who wouldn't love Shaka Bra Java. And so you work your way up, and then they make you the manager of another store, another one of their restaurants.
Yes, they do. Definitely a mistake that I have also made, which is not every great server makes a great manager.
And so it was another Blue Sea Sushi.
It was the flagship location.
But before that, you came from a high volume one.
I did. Yeah, the higher voluming one for sure.
And then you went to, and I really appreciate your transparency. I don't hurt anybody's heart, and I'm really careful with what I say.
Yeah.
But you failed miserably managing the flagship.
Totally.
You just flamed out, disaster everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I have a proclivity to exaggerate failure, but it was pretty bad. I was just too young. I was too young and inexperienced. I didn't get a lot of training, and I didn't really understand the entire scope of what a great manager does. I was so focused on keeping my people happy and didn't really understand the periphery of the business and keeping the business healthy.
Well, and what I appreciate very much is you owning your part of it. In a divorce, both parties are to blame. Always. Both people, they do, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's good to own your stuff in the divorce. Here's what I contributed to that failed marriage. But you can't take responsibility for the other person's failures.
Yes.
And I think some of the failures on their end, that as I've listened to your story, that I hear with my heart and, my, 50 some years of walking around, getting a lot of wisdom, hard fought for wisdom that I didn't used to always have, is they didn't train you really. They didn't prep you. They didn't give you the resources or the data. Because if you're going to run a restaurant well, you need data. You need cold, hard facts. What's happening, right? They didn't give you that. And then listening around the edges, what did you say? That it was the flagship, so the employees were used to getting what they wanted.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not a healthy culture.
No. I mean, the balance, right? When there is a balance of empowerment with any employee, but it also has to be balanced there with accountability as well. And if that line gets blurred, it's something that we deal with every day. But I learned a lot.
Yeah, and that unhealthy culture. Now, I've been an employee, I've been a corporate employee, and I want to be treated well. I want to be empowered. I don't want to be my opinions not count, etc. But I've worked in the banking world at places where the local staff and a local, whatever, they literally got whatever they wanted, and they didn't always want what was good for the company or good for the customers.
Exactly.
And so I'm not suggesting at all that you don't care for people, et cetera, but there can be places on healthy culture, and you didn't create that culture. You got there, and there it was. And if someone wants to say, what's Steven talking about? Just read the book, Give a Mouse a Cookie.
Yeah, it's such a good one.
That really applies to where it can be an unhealthy culture related to what the employees want, because they don't always want what's best, like I said, for the company or for profits or for even the customers. I come from the Portland area, and bad service is kind of a joke there, but it's not always wrong, where the employees just don't care.
Yeah, I've seen Portlandia.
Well, it's funny. I've heard people that, they come from the East Coast where they make because it's the type of job, they make like $2 an hour. Some crazy thing. How is it even legal? And then they live on tips. And then they come to work in Portland, and it's like, you get paid the same whether you take care of the customer or not. So eventually it devolves to why do it? And it's tragic. And so just be careful of that. But you learned a lot from those failures, even to this day, right?
I did. You're right. I mean, famously said, it's not the mistakes we make, it's what we learn from them.
Yeah, you can get bitter or you can get better. That's one of the things I teach. Okay, but you healed. You went to Boom Noodle.
Yeah.
Server, bartender.
Maybe got a little bitter first and then got better, but yes.
and you had some healing there.
Yeah.
You had some, in the restaurant world, there's misadventures. We're not going to talk about the misadventures you had.
Yeah,
But
the heyday. I feel like every restaurant person's had their heyday.
But you learned from those misadventures as well.
Yep.
And then this is interesting. I mean, sometimes the minutia of someone's journey, I really don't talk about my podcast. I kind of big picture it. But this next step's interesting. You were in Austin, really cool city for a hot minute, 7-8 months.
Great culinary town.
Very culinary. Oh, so good. So you're in there for a hot minute. You worked at a couple restaurants as server, but you spent some time staging cooking in a restaurant.
Yes, for an awesome chef. Her name was Sonia Cote, and she was working at the East Side Showroom then. And she let me come work in her kitchen with her side by side. I mean, she also let me clean her walk-in and do tubs and tubs of mirepoix for prep. But I learned a lot about the function of the kitchen and the culture of the kitchen and how it's so different than the front of house then, and super formative.
Yeah, I think it's really important. It's really helpful, I think, people working in restaurant management to have literally worked in a kitchen, front of house, back of house, hopefully both a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it informed because you get
always a gain. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, and then back to Seattle. And then that's where you ended up working for your second major management group. Yeah. And you started out as a server and worked your way up and were helping run restaurants.
I got to work for the Duchesne group out there. Really talented group with awesome. Every business is one off, so they weren't really set for scale. But super successful even to this day. Just learned a ton. Learned a lot about branding.
All right, so now I want to come back to how you got to Bozeman, because it is a story that is, if you hang out with anybody in Montana, it's not an uncommon story how that kind of emerged. Now we get to the part of the story where how you end up in Bozeman, and that's more personal for you than professional, if I have that right.
100%.
You're in Seattle. You fell in love with a guy working in wine at the time, and he happened to be from Montana. From the Ruby Valley, about an hour from here. I'd name some of the towns, but nobody's heard of those small towns in the Ruby Valley. The Ruby Valley is about an hour from here. And the thing is, just a cautionary tale, if you live in the United States and you start dating a guy or a gal from Montana, they tend to come back.
This could happen to you.
And so your spouse, you could fall in love with them, and they may drag you back to Montana.
Yes.
And so along the way, your husband decides that he's going to go to college again.
Yep.
Become a mechanical engineer. So he's super smart. I mean, he's smart to do that, and then smart enough to catch you. So that's pretty good.
That's right.
And so 2012, you guys are moving to Bozeman. Not back to Bozeman. He's moving back to Montana, and he's dragging you along with him, and you arrive in Bozeman.
I arrived here, no job, no idea what the town was like. All I knew was that I wasn't going to go straight into managing a restaurant.
So we'll get to that in a second. But when you first arrived in Bozeman, first time you got here, what did you think? Because Seattle to Bozeman's a little bit of a different culture.
A huge culture. I'm a big city girl, so this is certainly not a big city, particularly then. I mean, it's still not. I think I've just gotten used to it. I actually thought Bozeman was bigger at the time than I expected. Most of my Montana experiences have been in rink-dink towns with, one bar, one store.
So you got here, it's like, oh, it's bigger than I expected.
Yeah, look at it's bustling.
And what did you think when the first time you first got here? Was the culinary scene more than you expected?
It was. Actually, my first culinary experience in Bozeman, Blackbird still had breakfast. And which they don't anymore, but I remember going there and having like the most delicious quiche and being like, okay, I can live here. This is okay.
So you're looking for a job. You got a job at a coffee shop as a server.
Yeah.
And you took all of your management experience off of your resume.
I did.
Why the heck did you do that?
Because so one of two things was going to happen. Either no one would hire me as an entry level position because I had management experience, or they would look at my resume and immediately want to put me into a management role. So being very experienced in this industry, it's a good move if you're not quite sure where you want to be, is editing out the experience you maybe aren't ready to share yet.
Okay, there you go. And so, but 2013, something really cool happens. You find a job on Craigslist.
Yep.
To be a bartender at a restaurant that's just opening. which happens to be where we're sitting today having this podcast.
True.
A Copper Whiskey Bar and Grill, and I had Steakhouse, so people kind of know what kind of place it is.
Yeah.
And so you helped launch this restaurant. You were here from day one.
Yes, almost not. The entire bartending staff were people from Bozeman who already lived here, and then they hired me as a bartender, but they didn't put me on opening night. But I showed up anyway because I knew they'd need the help.
Because you have management experience.
I have management experience,
and they put you to work.
Absolutely. I think I was here until like 4:30 in the morning that day, in this very room, trying to count the till for the first time it had ever been counted at Copper, and it was a disaster.
Okay, so you work 3-4 years, you're working along, and so on the other side of the other part of the story, where kind of the parallel stories come together, Casey's a guy that's part of OK Cool.
Yep,
and he
CEO.
And he started Copper.
Yep.
And he had some other restaurants, and the model he had at the time, he had operating partners. And then when an operating partner quits, they leave you holding the restaurant bag.
Yep.
And so along the way, part of what happens to clean things up and straighten things out, eventually you guys kind of connect professionally. He discovers that you hauled out on him, and you have all this incredible restaurant management experience. And you guys start OK Cool roughly in 2018.
That's right. Yeah.
I know for those that know more of this story, hey, we shorthanded it. I don't want to talk about some of those other things. That's just not how I roll. But that's kind of what happened. And now one of the restaurants in the group that you manage is Copper. Copper here, and there's two Coppers. There's Copper Big Sky,
yep,
which I have yet to go to. I haven't done the Big Sky experience yet, but I'm going to. And then Copper here. Now, here's something really weird. I've worked in the corporate world, and when you're working, someone starts and they're beneath you, on the organizational chart, and they become your boss in the corporate world, in the banking world. There's a lot of people that don't like that, particularly if they're young. And I don't mean any offense, but you seem pretty young. You look pretty young.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
I suspect that you might be one of those evil millennials.
I am. Through and through.
and I have to tell you, because of my son Zach, my son Zeke, I have a preference toward, Generation Z. That's more how I roll, because they're way less lazy than you millennials.
Super into them. Yeah. Super into them.
I'm just kidding.
I hope they do all of the work for us.
But you are young, in all kidding aside.
Yes.
And the other person that was here day one, and is still here now at this particular restaurant here at Copper, it's not his title, it's his name, Chef, but Scotty Burton. Most people just call him Chef.
Infamous.
The infamous. And I did a whole podcast with him, and here's what's weird. He likes you. He thinks well of you, and you started out as a bartender, and now you're basically like one of his bosses.
Yeah, not basically. I am. No, I think any great relationship is built on the foundation of a huge amount of respect. And in our industry, I think, yes, my very brief experience in the kitchen has helped with this, but I think in general, understanding the homage that chefs deserve. I mean, oftentimes they are more educated in this field. They have generally worked in every which way position in the kitchen. There's never enough gratitude or respect that can be paid to the kitchen, with how restaurants are structured and tip outs and all of that. It's just, they are so deserving of that respect. And
you recognize that.
I do. And Chef is not just an amazing chef. I'm sure, you probably had a conversation with him about his kids, and he's a legend. And
not biological kids, but young people that he's trained in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
they self-identify as that.
I'm one of Chef's kids.
Yep, absolutely. So I just do. I have the utmost respect for him, and I am so grateful because he has been very supportive of of every transition that he's seen me go through in this company.
Well, he probably just feels so happy one of his kids becomes the executive chef at some other restaurant. He probably bursts with joy. So to see your grow in your journey, some people are curmudgeons that want to hold people back and they're grumpy when other people succeed. He's the exact opposite. And so he's probably been thrilled to see your career flourish. And how cool that you're back in restaurant management in an awesome town like Bozeman.
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of people don't know. I'll just shorthand some of your day-to-day stuff. You do like role development. What that means is, we'll just pick, because we're already here in Copper, there may be you need to create a new position that's never existed before because it's just going to make everything flow better. And you watch for those and tinkering with roles so everyone's supported and has what they need. So that's one thing you do, role development, right?
Yes. Yep. A lot of role development, particularly now.
You do a lot of just visits and interpersonal stuff with employees because you gotta know what's going on with them. So that's an important part of what you do. You do interviews with employees, particularly upper management kind of employees, and make sure they're a good fit for the culture you're building.
Yes, lots of interviews.
Yep. And you guys are in a big construction phase right now. We'll take some really cool projects we're going to talk about in a second coming down the pike, early 2021. Be so glad when 2020 is over.
Yeah.
So you're doing a lot of site visits and just kind of basically build out construction stuff. Yes,
and that's a whole new hat, but yes.
And the thing that I never liked, the paperwork, the boring stuff, part of the reason I wasn't as fond of banking, you guys have an in-house accountant.
We do.
And you sit down with him and you go over reports and profit and loss sheets.
Yes.
Because if you don't make a profit, it all disappears. And I want the steak, but you got to have a profitable restaurant for me to get the really cool steak. And again, I did a whole podcast with Chef Scotty, and I love ribeyes, but the hanger blew my mind. It was like, wow.
Yeah, a great hanger.
I did not expect that.
A lot of people don't like the financial parts, but it is really empowering. I was actually brought to tears, no kidding, yesterday. I shouldn't share this. Yesterday over our P&Ls. I was, you really can see the result of hard work across your company when you look at it at that level in a snapshot. And you feel like you're actually accomplishing something. Yeah, it's huge. And sometimes, when you're in the daily grind and in operations and you kind of feel like every day is a little bit the same, you forget how much impact you can have. So. All right, I want to talk about the current restaurants that are part of the OK Cool, which I love the name OK Cool Group. We thought up that name anyways. Oh, man. It actually came from early on in Casey and I working together. Apparently, when I am done talking about a topic and I would like to move on to the next topic, I say, okay, cool. Okay, cool. That means done, on the next topic. I love that. But now, once you know, okay, cool, as a hospitality company, it's hard not to catch yourself saying it all of the time. And I don't think I'm the only one who utilizes it that way. I think that's hilarious. Okay. Yeah. We've mentioned already some of them. You've got Copper here in Bozeman. You've got Copper in Big Sky. Yes. You've got Kitty Warren. Yep. Kitty Warren is your basement speakeasy tiki bar, social club,
speak tiki
bar
to
built
me.
in a closet. You got it. That's it.
You've got El Camino Bar, which I ate at yesterday. Oh my gosh, just so amazing. And I did a podcast with Kate Burton, who is connected to Chef Scotty Burton
in the most intimate way. Yes.
Yes, they're married. And we went in depth about her journey, which is amazing. We're spending her career front of house primarily, although she's done other things like you. And then we talked a lot about El Camino Bar and the amazing food. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And then the newest one you guys just opened is Tips. I want to be very careful so I don't get in trouble.
Happens all the time.
Tips Up. TIP, Tips Up. When you're, I know that you're avid skier. No, I'm being sarcastic.
Definitely.
But what's that mean for those that don't know?
But when you're coming off of a ski lift, there's generally a sign forewarning you to keep your tips up so that you don't bite it as you
face plant into the snow.
So they say. But yeah, it's a kind of 80s if El Camino was built in the 60s and opened in the 70s, then Tips Up would have been built in the 70s and opened in the 80s.
And those are metaphorical how they feel.
Yeah, there's definitely that vibe. Video games, cheap beer, shuffleboard, and there's also a big live music component as well.
So one of the things that that I tell my wife is that the 80s were the best time ever for music, for movies, for fashion. And when I say fashion, she shuts me down hard. It's a dark time for fashion. But,
I mean, it's kind of back now. So,
and you're probably too young to remember, but man, Miami Vice. I had the white jacket.
Yeah.
I had the white jacket. I had the little slipper shoes.
Definitely.
I shouldn't even admit this. I didn't ever have
parachute. Flock of seagulls.
I did not have any parachute pants. Thank the good Lord, because I couldn't come back from that. And so that's a fun, a ski bar up in Big Sky.
Yeah, they're in Town Center. Yeah, it's fun.
I love it. Okay, and then it's not open yet. So this is just a little bit of a preview, and things may change as things happen, because things do change. And some people say, well, you said it on your podcast. Yeah, things change, bucko.
Yeah. It is the restaurant industry.
Yeah, learn to think. It's not always easy for people to learn to think. But you have the Osborne building just down the way. So when I did the podcast with Scotty, he told the most entertaining version of the buildings blowing up.
Oh my gosh,
tragic story, actually, but the day Bozeman blew up. And that's the last building to be rebuilt.
It is.
The Osborne building. And so you guys are going to have in future now, this is not existing yet, but in the basement will be Happy Box.
Yes, our first Asian concept, which I'm really excited for.
So it's going to have Asian street food, and it sounds just amazing.
And karaoke rooms, private karaoke rooms. So just I like to say we do basements really well, obviously with Copper, Kitty Warren. So
yeah, because Copper's in a basement. People don't realize that.
Yeah.
Copper Bozeman's in a basement. And then on the main floor, you'll have Main Street Market.
Yes. So kind of a little coffee shop, wine bar, bodega in the middle of a lot of mini retail shops. So should have a ton of energy. Really excited about that. Big pastry program. And then also it's just a great place to go buy Band-Aids downtown if you need some.
And there's just not a lot of places open late right now where you can get those kind of things.
Yeah, definitely not. So
yeah, if I want a 6-pack to go and downtown, there's nowhere to get it.
Grab it anywhere.
Yep. I think that's great. And then up above, you're going to have I've seen some of the previews, some stories I can't tell, but a fine dining experience brigade.
Yes.
Which is going to have incredible views and some amazing dining experiences I can't talk about yet, but I'm super excited for that one.
I'm also very excited. I'm excited for our staff on that one. It's very exciting for us to venture into that world. Kind of crazy given the times that we're in, but good old Bozeman's in kind of a bubble, so we'll do it. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. It will definitely allow us to flex some muscles that we don't get to currently flex in our existing brands. So yeah, I think we're all really looking forward to seeing what we can do there.
I can't wait to come back and check them out. Maybe do some podcasts about them. That sounds really exciting.
We'd love to have you.
A couple questions for you. Does Bozeman feel like home?
It does. I'm a military kid, so moved around a ton growing up, and even in my adult life, never really settled. But there is something about Bozeman. I mean, I haven't gotten that normal every 3-year itch I think a lot of military kids do, that it's time to move on.
Yeah, people don't understand. So where were the places you lived? So you went from Edmonds, Washington, to Alameda, California, to Virginia Beach, moved to Florida, a couple bases there, and then Milton and
Pensacola. And
then back to Seattle.
No, then we moved to Japan.
Oh, Japan, that's right.
So I was in Japan for 7 years, really grew up there from 6 to 13.
Wow. And that'll shape your culinary journey.
Yeah, no kidding, really. I mean, yeah.
No wonder you're excited for the Asian street food.
I'm still ruined for sushi. There are just some things that you're like, well, I don't know. And I mean, the stuff you get out of a vending machine, that's incredible. It's just totally different.
And then after Japan,
moved back to Washington.
Yeah. And that impacts people in different ways. I just did a podcast 2 days ago with Robert at Granny's Gourmet Donuts.
Amazing.
He also
the strawberry donut.
That is my favorite. It's the best to eat, and it's the most beautiful to photograph. I'm old, but I'm all about the gram,
Yeah.
And he was a military kid, so you guys should compare notes sometime over a beer.
There is a bond. There is totally.
And he traveled all over, and you ask him how it impacts him. Say, I talked to Steven, and when his podcast comes out, I think you will really love it. He was charming and amazing.
He is amazing.
So, but that's part of why
his donuts. They're so good.
Amen. Yes, they are. And so that's part of the reason. You love Bozeman.
I do love Bozeman.
But when I say does it feel like home, it's just you have a different journey than most of us because you traveled all over, and picking up and leaving is part of your journey. So this is a whole new experience for you.
It is. But I think Bozeman's, where I carve out, right? That's the biggest the coolest part about Bozeman right now is all of the opportunity that's here.
That's one of the things you love about Bozeman is you see it as a place for opportunity where things can be built and developed and made happen.
Look, whether or not we're all truly excited that things have to change, they are going to. And so to try to get to be part of that fabric and change it in a positive way, definitely, right? I'm a millennial. I want to do something that means something, right?
Well, and I'm very proud that I'm Generation X. I'm not a boomer.
Yeah.
Those dang boomers. So I'm not, get off my lawn. You can't change anything. So I love things. I love things that have some tradition, consistency. But I also, I love Hofbrau. It's been around forever.
Yes.
Yep. And I love that. But I also love when things grow and change. It's just part of life. And,
totally.
it's just what happens. Do you love the restaurant business?
I love the restaurant business.
I knew that, but I wanted people to hear it because they can't see the joy in your face when you talk about it.
What
do you love best about it?
Irony in my face too. As I was saying, everybody says this as their interview question. Why do you want to be in the restaurant industry? And it's the people. But for me, it is the industry people specifically. As much as we all love customer service and we all love every guest, it's the people who work in this industry that make it exciting for me.
No, I get it. When you say you love the people, it does sound a little cliche, but it's true for me.
It's so bad.
Summer 2011, I couldn't do the life I had anymore, and may he rest in peace. I'd always had watched No Reservations, Anthony Bourdain, and I finally said, you know what? And I loved him.
Uncle Tony.
But he was also a curmudgeon, and so I said, man, if he can get paid to drink, so can I. And I thought I wanted to be a food writer, and I started out, I hate typing though, writing about things, and then and I still do food writing, but more my real passion is fell in love with the people that make all of our magic happen. That's why it led me to that culinary storytelling where I love the chefs and I love the bartenders and I love the winemakers and the distillers and the donut makers, like Robert. So it's cliche, but it really is true. They are a special breed of people I just love them. You love them. It's not a cliche at all. It's a thing.
Yeah. There's one of the most impactful things ever said to me in my life is that there's nothing more wholesome than the exchange of food for money. And being in that business can be nothing but good. And that is so real. And I think that the people who work in this industry have an experience unlike any other. To serve people and to give them something that they need feels great. And it certainly shapes you as a person. So, what's it like working with chefs? Do you like working with chefs? Yes, I actually really do like working with chefs.
So talk to me about that. What resonates with you about chefs? You laugh because it's true.
It's absolutely true. Anytime that anybody is an expert at what they do or they hone a craft to that level, they put in their 10,000 hours, that is just invaluable to get to work with people who do something so well and love most of the time to do what it is that they do.
And so someone that's an expert, that really resonates with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do chefs keep it interesting?
They do. The secondary thing, I mean, as a manager of chefs, somebody who's had that relationship, they are so emotive. I don't think I've ever worked with a non-emotional chef, and it's just it's different kind of human.
Does it fit with your personality style?
It does.
Excuse me, not your personality. Excuse me, I misspoke. Your management style?
Yes. I mean, I'm big on connecting. I'm big on cultivating. I'm a big believer of trying to figure out what somebody is really good at and helping them be better at that.
I teach, I call that fulfillment cartography.
Yeah.
Where you
Beautiful.
help people find out, photography is the map and here's where you need to go for fulfillment.
Yeah.
So people that have that gift and that skill like you do, that is an amazing thing because some people need help to find out where they need to be fulfilled.
Totally. And industry people, it can be a short stint. It's not for everyone.
Yep. And that's okay.
It's totally okay.
How about the creativity of chefs? Does that resonate with you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, good and bad honing, right? Editing is so important. Editing is so important to any process. But totally, I love it. No pun intended. When somebody brings something to the table that's exciting, and my rule always is it just actually has to be delicious. Not really into heady food that doesn't taste good, but if it's super delicious, I don't care what it looks like. But yeah, I mean, I see that, with some of our younger chefs, and that is one of the things that's really inspiring about seeing our Chef Scotty Burton work, is to inspire that creativity. And when somebody's experiencing a truffle for the first time, and we are in Bozeman, Montana, so the culinary experience with a lot of our staff at large, I mean, they're not in these major cities where they're having these vast, cultural and culinary experiences.
So you get to introduce them to a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's inspiring. Like, they have these fresh eyes on these ingredients. And you're like, no, you're not supposed to do that with that. But no dairy with the seafood.
Okay. So, and I have to ask you about your shirt. Bibimbap, gochujang, and kimchi. That is one badass shirt.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm half Korean. Grew up. That is actually my most formative culinary experiences. Of course, my mom's cooking. So, I do like to tout that the best Korean food in Bozeman's at my house. Although my sister moved to town about 1.5 years ago, and hers is pretty good too now. So, but yeah.
So when you come to Portland, if you ever come to Portland, I have a dear friend. He's a chef. He has an amazing Korean restaurant. He's Korean. He does a fantastic job. And his restaurant, his food truck, and his Kim Jong Grillin'. And his bibimbap is amazing, along with all of his other dishes. So if you ever come to Portland, I have got to introduce you to him because his stuff is amazing.
I love Portland. I mean, it is, I don't know, Seattle, Portland, Austin. They all have special places.
Now, we don't like Seattle and Portland, just for the record. And we don't like them.
I know.
Austin's okay, even though they tried to steal our keep Portland weird, keep Austin weird. We had it first, so. I say that all.
I don't know if that's true. There's also keep Ballard weird in Seattle. So.
All right. That's it. Now you've gone too far. No, I say this all with a smile on my face. I lived in Minnesota for 3 years, and that's where I learned, that we need to hate the right people.
Yeah.
So in Minnesota, we hate people in Wisconsin because we hate the Packers, and we hate Iowa. I wasn't sure why, but we definitely hate Iowa. Okay. And then I said, what about North South Dakota? Don't we hate them too? Oh no, we just feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
So everywhere, I grew up in Southern California, hate Northern California. I was in Seattle. I didn't like Portland. Now I'm in Portland. I don't like Seattle. So it all works. Who do we not like in Bozeman?
I mean, the Grizz.
Oh, that's right, Missoula. We hate Missoula. That's right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Again, I'm just teasing. If you're from Missoula, a lot of really good breweries and restaurants up there.
I don't have a problem with anybody. It's the Grizz.
Yeah, because your husband went to MSU.
He did, but he also went to Gonzaga. So,
ooh, that's pretty badass.
Yeah. So,
as a basketball fan, I like that.
Yeah. I'm not outdoorsy. I'm not a big sports person, although I'm getting much better at sports analogies when it comes to team meetings and things like that.
Good for you.
But yes, I know enough to know that we don't like the Grizz particularly.
That's right. They're down with them.
Doing cat Grizz. So.
All right. Well, it has, Nicole, it has just been a delight to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
I can't wait to come back and visit again and check out all the cool projects you have. The Osborne building is going to be amazing. And then I speculate, given your creative energy, because you're one of those lazy millennials that is actually not lazy. Yeah. Millennials work hard and are amazing and awesome. They're just different. So you boomers, shut the hell up. The millennials are amazing. They're almost good as my son's generation, Generation Z. That's the generation younger. The Osborne building's not your last. Next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then there'll be other fun things that you guys do. I bet you. The thing my wife hate when I says it. Bet your bippy you'll have more cool stuff coming.
Let's hope so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Culinary Treasure Podcast. Cheers.
Yes. Cheers.